Hi everyone, so the music of The Witcher 3, for me, is one of the main reasons I enjoy going back to the game all these years later. Now I actually didn't play The Witcher 3 until 2019, but since that point I've put an immense amount of hours into the many different replays of the game. What stood out to me the most when playing the game was how the music brought me into this new world I'd never heard about and kept me hooked throughout. So what I wanted to discuss today was my top 10 favorite musical themes throughout The Witcher game, and try to give a reason why I put them where I did. For everyone, I know the list will obviously change from person to person, and at least for me, it changed a few times while I was creating it. Also, I'm no music major. My last music class was a jazz history class in college, and I only did the class since I needed some extra credit hours. So without further ado, let's begin my list for the top 10 greatest themes in The Witcher 3. So starting off the list at the number 10 spot is the Hunt is Coming theme. Now I want to mention that this theme does have a slight edge on other themes that might have been put in the top 10 spot. After my first completion of the game and between the time before I went back for my second playthrough, there was only a single theme that I had occasionally listened to, the one that is playing in the background. This theme did face some competition for 10th place, as Eredin's theme is a close contender due to the grandeur of the fight conveyed by the vocalists. Now back to The Hunt is Coming, I just want you to take a quick listen and tell me this isn't one of the greatest themes to be playing while facing down the wild hunt at Kaer Morhen at one of the penultimate moments of the game. So that's why I put this theme at my number 10 spot. Alright, so moving on, the theme that I put at the number 9 spot is the Ladies of the Woods theme. What's great about this theme is how it conveys the danger, but also the mysteriousness of the crones of Crookback Bog. Geralt still doesn't have a clear picture of who they are and what they're capable of, and this music helps convey that message in a haunting way that leads to it having such an impact on myself and the others who have played the game. Take a listen to how this theme gives off the eerie vibes while also conveying their danger to Geralt. The Ladies of the Woods theme also works so well considering the portion of the story where it's played is actually meant to take place earlier in the game, even though you can play it whenever you really want to, and the player still doesn't have a great understanding on how depressing the world of The Witcher can be, which is conveyed perfectly through this piece. And that's why I put this at the number 9 spot on my list. So moving on to the number 8 theme on the list, the Slopes of Blessure. This is the first theme from the Blood and Wine expansion that's going to be on this list. Much like the previous theme and how its ranking benefited from when it's used in the story, this theme is also highly ranked due to that detail as well. What this theme does perfectly too is convey how Geralt is in a completely different area than the rest of the game. It tells the player that they are going to get used to a completely different area of the Witcher world, and the music also sounds nostalgic at the same time. It gives the player a relaxing feeling, which works perfectly as we are nearing the end of Geralt's story in the game. Also, this theme will forever be stuck in my head as I have heard it a countless amount of times while running to the Grandmaster Armorer in Toussaint. The music in Toussaint just brings a completely different feeling than the rest of the game, and that's why I have to put this theme at the number 8 spot on the list. The number 7 spot on my list is the theme For Honor for Toussaint, another theme from the Blood and Wine expansion. In The Witcher 3, there are countless different combat themes that play for when you're fighting basic enemies like guards or ghouls, and while they are great at conveying the intensity of combat, something stands out about this specific combat theme. The music starts slower and quieter, but leads into a more grand feeling that persists until the fight is over. It fits perfectly into the expansion as well, and feels more present in the combat than any of the other combat themes that play throughout the base game. It was a bit difficult to justify this placement rather than some other combat theme, just because all the combat music is great, but just listening to this theme over the other themes convinced me. I find myself often looking forward to getting into combat occasionally just to hear this theme play out, and that is why I'm putting this theme at the number 7 spot on my list. For the White Orchard theme, which is the number 6 on my list, it keeps going up for one of my favorite themes on each subsequent playthrough. Coming back to the game after a long time and hearing this theme, knowing what you were about to go through as Geralt and the player, makes the somber tone of this theme hit that much harder. For first time players, this theme also gives one of the first looks, so to speak, into how the world of The Witcher won't be like any other open world games you might have played. This theme, played along with the crying in nearby villagers, allows me to understand the atmosphere of the game almost instantly and sticks with you as you finish essentially the prologue of the game. It's a great theme to introduce the game to new and returning players for these reasons. This theme has definitely earned the right to be at the number 6 spot for me at least, and arguably in the future it could take the spot of the others on this list. Now that we have reached the halfway point for the list, I would like to mention that it was hard to place these next themes where I did. Truth be told, 2 through 5 could be interchanged at any time as they are all very close when it comes to how great they are, but I'm fairly content with where I placed them. For the number 5 spot on my list, Cloak and Dagger is one of the more lighthearted themes in The Witcher 3. While horse races in the game can get a bit tedious, as the AI isn't always the most challenging, hearing this theme while going from horse race to horse race always gets me a bit excited. Even though this theme can mainly be heard during the races, it is also used when completing the game with Ciri living and becoming a Witcher. This theme perfectly complements Dandelion's monologue as it goes through the fates of the characters in the game. This theme always gets me energetic for the horse races, and when it's playing at the end of the game, becomes a great send-off for the main story, and that's why I have to put Cloak and Dagger at the number 5 spot on my list. For the number 4 spot on my list, Welcome Ciri is the theme that plays on the Isle of Mists as Geralt finally reunites with Ciri. What makes this theme so great is the build-up it provides as Geralt finally finds Ciri after searching far and wide. This is also an emotional moment for the player as they have spent countless hours getting to this point. Throughout the entire cutscene, the theme sounds as though it's somber, possibly meaning that Ciri is dead. However, it changes tune the second she wakes up and works perfectly with the emotional moment in a way that makes it a perfect accompaniment to one of the best parts of the game. This theme really just brings together the entire scene, and that's why I have to put it at number 4 on my list. Moving on to number 3 for the greatest themes for Witcher 3, the trail is unique, as it is the first theme the player hears while witnessing the cinematic that starts the game. The theme, along with the cinematic, gives the player a brief glimpse into the world and the music of the world, in a way that provides the player a perfect amount of detail to get roused up to play the game. Whenever I return to the game, I find myself excited to start and hear this theme alongside the trailer, which gets me excited every time I replay the game. Even while I was listening to the theme when making my list, I could still remember the story of that first cutscene, which just goes to show how memorable and great this theme really is. The combination of the cinematic and theme work perfectly to get new and returning players ready for their long journey into The Witcher 3, which is why I put it at the number 3 spot. The number 2 spot on my list had to go to the theme Hunt or Be Hunted. There are a few times that this theme plays, with the most memorable being the first Griffin fight in White Orchard, Ciri escaping from Temple A with Dandelion, and when you play as Ciri in the final battle in the main campaign. The theme conveys intensity and urgency at the same time, and I find myself enjoying it more and more every time I return to the game. The reason I enjoy this theme enough to put it at the number 2 spot, and without sounding too cringe, is because it just sounds epic. I also have to admit that since it's used so much for parts of the game with more spectacle, it has a larger presence than the other themes, which is a large reason why I decided to put this theme at my number 2 spot. So before I get to my favorite theme in The Witcher 3, I wanted to list a few honorable mentions. These were themes that competed for the top 10, and I felt I had to include at least some of them just because while they didn't make the top 10, they still deserve to be mentioned in this video. The first honorable mention is the Bloody Baron's family. The next honorable mention is Morning in Lofoten. The last honorable mention is the Nightingale, which you'll remember from Gwent. In my opinion, the greatest theme in The Witcher 3, at number 1 on the list, is the Kaer Morhen theme. I believe this largely due to one reason. Beating The Witcher 3 story for the very first time is an experience, but spawning in Kaer Morhen with no more main story missions, and hearing this song left an impression on me, and I would argue it left an impression on most players as well. Ever since my first playthrough, this is the theme that I listen to the most when I'm not playing the game. Entering the woods around Kaer Morhen after grabbing Uma almost flips the feeling of the game from urgent to calming. This theme also plays during the flashback scene in the very beginning of the game, which lends a large reason as to why it feels so calming when it's playing. This theme brings up the greatest moments I have from playing this game, and that is why, for me at least, this theme will always be number 1 on my list and will never change. First off, before I end the video, I have to thank the Witcher 3 composers, whose names I have left in the description as I don't want to butcher their pronunciation, for their fantastic job in scoring The Witcher 3. Who knows what the game would have been like with a mediocre score. Also, just wanted to give a quick shout out to Xlatalis and Neon Knight, who sort of inspired me to create this video, as I constantly watch their Witcher content. This video took a while to make, so if you would consider subscribing and leaving a like, that would be much appreciated. Let me know down in the comments below how different your top 10 is compared to mine, or at least what your favorite theme is from The Witcher 3. Thanks and have a great day.